The following is a warning from the SCP Foundation. You may not retain any knowledge of the information discussed in this video. Any details of antimemetic anomalies are known to fade over time. Whatever you do, maintain focus above all else. The corrosion effect is known to occur at varying and different rates, depending on a number of factors, including the individual recipient of the antimemetic information. The level of detail and accuracy given also bears some impact on informational corrosion, as does the physical complexity of the system used to store the affected data. Electronic mediums and even physical evidence like photographs and research papers are known to decay at a faster rate than more basic methods of recording information, like loose notes or pencil sketches. It is for these reasons that the SCP Foundation has deemed it a necessary approach to utilize the most complex data storage medium in existence, the human brain. Yours may be our only hope of retaining any information about SCP-2256, the very tall things. The story of the anomalous species designated as SCP-2256 could have begun centuries, if not millennia ago. The exact point at which these creatures evolved into their current form, or indeed any of their potential evolutionary ancestors, remains unknown. Experts within the SCP Foundation's Xenobiological Research and Containment Division have long theorized that SCP-2256 may bear a genetic relation to sauropods. These are a subgroup of dinosaurs that are distinguished by features such as their large size, being quadrupedal, possessing long necks and tails, along with a mostly herbivorous diet. Foundation xenobiology researchers have theorized that SCP-2256 are an evolutionary offshoot or cousin species to the Brontosaurus, a group of sauropod dinosaurs that existed during the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous periods, between 163 million to 100 million years ago. However, any conclusive proof on a possible connection has been impossible to retrieve, and theories are largely rooted in conjecture, based on descriptions of the animals from heavily redacted Foundation records. Attempts have been made to conduct full genetic analysis of SCP-2256. However, any samples acquired and any information gleaned from them by researchers cannot be permanently recorded within the SCP Foundation's database. Some xenobiological research and containment personnel have called this a defense mechanism. Others consider it to be an innate antimemetic anomalous property of SCP-2256. Either way, this means that SCP-2256 is one of the only recorded species in history to have developed their own rudimentary perception-based camouflage. It is nearly impossible for another sentient being to perceive them or remember them. Anomalous evolutionary researchers have claimed that this could be an adaptation that evolved within SCP-2256 in order for them to evade predators. However, at present, they have no known natural predators. As mentioned earlier, highly detailed information regarding these creatures decays over time, both from records and from human memory. This has rendered any genealogical study of the species impossible, and as a result, all that the Foundation is aware of about these creatures is based on collected fragments of data from various different sources. According to some of the available details, the Foundation first became aware of the existence of SCP-2256 sometime around the early 90s, possibly as early as 1991. Their discovery seems to have been made completely by accident too, by a Foundation anthropologist conducting an investigation into an entirely different anomalous phenomenon. According to local legends dating back centuries, the native people of the Polynesian island of Makatiki would utilize an herbal substance known as tuakoka, a word that translates to interest from native Maori, and it certainly was of interest to the Foundation. Foundation anthropology experts discovered mentions of tuakoka in writings. The descriptions of the substance's effects led to researchers' curiosity surrounding its potentially anomalous properties. Teococa was used by the Makatitians for both religious and recreational purposes, and seemed to possess moderate psychedelic effects for those that consumed it. But these aren't the properties that drew the Foundation's interest. It seemed likely to them that Teococa was some form of mnestic, not to be confused with the similarly named amnestics, the chemical substances used by the Foundation for memory erasure. Mnestic drugs function in the opposite way. and are able to prevent or in some cases even reverse memory loss. Think of them as anti-amnestics. Both target the brain's neural pathways associated with memory, although it is strongly advised to avoid combining mnestics with amnestics. Within the SCP Foundation's operations, mnestics are widely used by the antimemetic anomaly department. Specific cases of these memory-enhancing drugs are capable of allowing subjects to perceive and retain knowledge of antimemetic objects, information, or entities. The strongest class of these, Class Z mnestics, can cause a subject to be biochemically incapable of forgetting anything over the remainder of their life, even after a single dose. However, Class Zs are inevitably fatal to any who consume them, and will trigger a violent seizure within a few hours of consumption, resulting in death. Given their access to their own form of mnestic in Teokoka, the Mycotician people were able to suppress the antimemetic effects of SCP-2256. This removed the creature's camouflage by consuming the herbal concoction, making it possible to see and remember them, at least temporarily. It meant that native Mycoticians were the only people able to see the creatures for centuries or retain any knowledge of them. Information about SCP-2256 was incorporated into local Mycotician mythology, which considered the creatures to be wandering spirits that were charged by the gods themselves to maintain the horizon. They were referred to as Polo-ongakal, meaning the ones who walk very slowly, and according to the myths, ensured that the sky and the seas never mixed. SCP-2256's depiction in cultural texts and local legends were as friendly but unintelligent beasts. They meant well, but were often deficient in their duty, which created a mythological explanation for thunderstorms and typhoons within the Mycotician culture. If one occurred, it meant that the Polo-ongakal weren't doing a good job of keeping the ocean and the sky separate. Whether these creatures have any degree of meteorological influence is yet to be observed directly by the Foundation. At this time, it is considered more a fictional aspect of the myth than an additional anomalous property of SCP-2256. Dispatching an expert in anomalous anthropology, only referred to for security purposes under the codename Quintum, an abbreviation of quantum, the Foundation sought to conduct a biochemical study to determine the exact mnestic properties of the Teokoka herbal concoction. By following details of the Mycotician legend, Agent Quintum was able to obtain samples of Teokoka for analysis. Close examination revealed a near-identical chemical resemblance between the substance and the Foundation's own Class W mnestic drugs, specifically the class that allows for general memory enhancement, as well as enabling a subject to perceive and retain knowledge of antimemetic anomalies they encounter for a short duration of time. It was by taking Teokoka in order to directly observe its effects that Agent Quintum became the first person outside of the native Mycotician community to perceive SCP-2256, also given the Latin name of Cryptomorpha gigantes. SCP-2256 are a species of gigafauna that seem to exclusively inhabit the areas of the South Pacific Ocean that surround the islands of Polynesia. From the outset, Quintum observed that they were incredibly tall, standing on 4 spindly elongated legs that they used to traverse the water. The adults of the species grow to stand at approximately 1,000 meters in height. This is a close estimation of their total height, not just their height visible above the water. The creatures seem capable of walking on the surface of the ocean itself, rather than having portions of their legs submerged under the waves. They were able to achieve this thanks to wide dish-shaped feet that prevented them from sinking as they traveled in groups as small as 2 and as many as 2,000. According to what Agent Quintum was able to witness, instances of SCP-2256 were reluctant to approach land, especially islands inhabited by human beings. Herds of SCP-2256 typically kept around 30 kilometers from the shore, their vast height combined with their distance making them visible on the horizon. Naturally, Foundation Research Coordination might not initially assume that the creatures were real. Given the noted psychedelic effects of Teokoka, there needed to be some confirmation that SCP-2256 weren't a collective anomalous hallucination triggered by the consumption of the herbal substance. Immediately, attempts were made by Agent Quintum to capture photographic evidence of the creatures. However, thanks to their antimemetic camouflage, this quickly proved to be impossible. A series of photographic negatives that were taken of the creatures at a distance were observed fading within a few minutes until completely transparent. Similar effects occurred when trying to record SCP-2256 via the use of videotapes, audio tapes, celluloid film, as well as through digital and electronic scans. When these methods failed, Agent Quintum and the other members of the observation team used crude pencil sketches on paper to draw SCP-2256 instances as accurately as possible, believing that this would be the only permanent way to record their existence. They were not, with many of the initial drawings also fading over time. A scan of the only surviving instance of these sketches was discovered by Foundation web crawlers, having been leaked onto an online forum. From the observational position, the Foundation kept a close watch over the behavior of SCP-2256, in order to both assess their threat level and attempt to record as much information as possible about them. The latter was impeded by the creature's antimemetic camouflage, though what was observed was the sudden decline in their population numbers. Between 1992 and 1993, shortly after the Foundation discovered SCP-2256, their numbers only slightly declined, then suffered a sharp drop in 1994, thanks to a combination of contributing factors including illness, plus a higher rate of infertility spreading amongst the SCP-2256 population. In 2002, as part of a plan architected by Agent Quintum, the Foundation attempted to create a field generator at the Makatiki Island observation position that would disrupt and potentially nullify the antimemetic camouflage surrounding SCP-2256. It was hoped that this would allow them to be able to capture photographs of the creatures over a decade after their initial discovery. The results were an unmitigated disaster. Upon activation, the monastic field generator appeared to be working. Observation of numerous instances of SCP-2256 roaming the waters around Makatiki proved possible. A camera with a high-power zoom lens was retrieved in order to capture the first-ever close-up photo of one of these towering creatures. The first and only photo of one, as the SCP-2256 instance pictured was witnessed abruptly toppled over the water and died instantaneously. It was quickly concluded that direct observation and attempts at permanently recording SCP-2256 was lethal to the anomalous species. Their antimemetic camouflage seemed to not only be a way to obscure them from predators, but to detect those perceiving them. All use of the monastic field generator was thereby suspended, but the problems, it seemed, weren't over. The observation team that had noticed the declining birth rate among the SCP-2256 species quickly came to a startling conclusion. It was thought that by continuing to passively observe these creatures, the Foundation was having a direct and harmful impact on their numbers. The concern that naturally arose was that if they continued watching SCP-2256, these anomalous animals could potentially go extinct. A huge entomological and ethic debate ensued, many of the details of which have been redacted from Foundation records, though it seems a number of suggestions were made about how to test this theory. One of these may have included the proposed extermination of the entire SCP-2256 species in order to preserve information about them without it being corroded by their antimemetic properties, and vice versa. It was suggested that the Foundation expunge all data regarding SCP-2256 to preserve their dwindling numbers. No firm conclusions were made initially, but in 2003, the SCP Foundation scaled back its observations of SCP-2256 significantly. Their focus shifted from gathering new data on the species to finding ways to preserve the existing data from being gradually corroded and lost, thanks to the antimemetic camouflage. However, though the entry is heavily redacted, it appears the damage had already been done. Their population numbers may well have continued to dwindle, possibly to zero. There is a reported death of a remaining individual instance of SCP-2256 occurring on October 30th, 2006. However, if the species itself really did die out thanks to the Foundation's interference, surely that would have stopped the antimemetic effects on information about them, right? It's hard to determine from the fragmented remainder of the SCP-2256 entry, but a discovery appears to have been made in 2010. The antimemetic camouflage causing this gradual decay or corrosion of data had continued to spread across all paper records of SCP-2256. It seems that potentially more than 60% of Foundation documents relating to the creatures could not be retained, even by personnel who took strong doses of monastic drugs before viewing. The same antimemetic effects are thought to have infected the SCP-2256 entry itself. despite the Foundation developing specialized shielding in their systems to prevent against this. Since the species designated as SCP-2256 potentially became extinct, no new data about them can be generated. It is predicted that antimemetic contamination will spread to the remainder of humanity within the next 3 to 8 years, which is why the SCP Foundation is imploring you, do not forget the contents of this video. Now go check out SCP-1265, the Mesozoic Preserve, and SCP-4840, the Flying City of Autodopodopolis, for more.